The waitress pressed the puppy closer to her chest, feeling the soft fur against her skin as the couple glared at her, their eyes dark and dangerous, and the murmur of the other diners seemed to fade into the background. She took a careful step backward, feeling the floor slick beneath her shoes from a spilled drink, and tried to steady her trembling hands, because every second she hesitated felt like a heartbeat too long. The man leaned forward, and his voice dropped into a low, threatening tone that made her skin crawl, and she realized with a jolt that this was no ordinary confrontation. The puppy whimpered softly, and she felt a surge of protectiveness rise in her chest, as if her own fear had been replaced by the need to defend the small creature at all costs. Across the room, the man in plain clothes adjusted his position, his eyes never leaving the scene, with a calculated tensity that made him invisible and present. All at once, he sipped his coffee slowly, pretending to be casual. But his body moved with a readiness that came from years of training and the awareness of danger that only a Navy SEAL could possess. His gaze flicked to the couple and then to the waitress, and he noted the exact moment the tension reached its peak, as if a storm was gathering energy in slow, deliberate pulses. The woman at the table made a sudden motion, and the man tensed like a coiled spring, ready to react in a fraction of a second. Waitress could feel the heat rising in her face as the couple whispered to each other, plotting their next move, and she sensed the room shrinking around her like the walls were closing in. The puppy wriggled in her arms, and she tightened her grip, feeling its heart beating fast against her chest. And every instinct screamed at her to get out, and yet she could not leave because the creature depended on her completely. The couple advanced one step and then another, and she took one backward and then another, trying to buy time and hoping for some sign of intervention from anyone in the room. The diners around them watched in frozen suspense, as if the entire restaurant had been sucked into a vacuum of tension, and the sound of clinking glasses and silverware had vanished. The man at the corner of the room took a small, deliberate step forward, shifting his weight almost imperceptibly, and the air around him seemed to change, as if a silent warning had passed through the space. Without a single word, he knew instinctively that the couple could escalate at any moment, and that the smallest wrong gesture could tip the balance into chaos. Suddenly, the woman lunged toward the puppy, her hand snapping like a striking snake, and the waitress stumbled backward, knocking a tray of plates to the floor. The crash echoed through the restaurant like a cannon, and the couple froze for just a moment. And that moment was enough to make the man at the corner flare into action. He did not move recklessly, but his presence seemed to thicken the air, as if the tension had condensed into something tangible and dangerous. He took another step, and the couple realized that this confrontation had shifted from a petty argument to a life-changing moment that they were not prepared to handle. Waitress pressed the puppy even closer to her chest, feeling its small body quivering, and the sense of danger made her knees weak. She could hear the shallow breaths of the other diners and the soft whisper of her own heartbeat, and she knew she had to stay calm even though her instincts screamed at her to run. The man watching had his eyes locked on the couple, noting every flicker of intent in their expressions and calculating how far they were willing to go before things spiraled out of control. The couple exchanged glances, and the woman whispered something under her breath, and the man slammed his hand on the table again, making the utensils jump, and the waitress flinched, fearing this was only the beginning. The puppy whimpered softly and nuzzled her neck, and she felt a protective surge rise in her chest, stronger than anything she had felt in a long time. She stood her ground, and in that moment, the tension between the couple and the waitress seemed to stretch thin, like a wire ready to snap at the slightest touch. The man at the corner of the room shifted his weight slightly, and a subtle movement rippled through the air. He did not speak, but the intensity of his presence sent an unspoken warning that reverberated through the space and made the couple hesitate. The woman opened her mouth to say something and then stopped, as if sensing a force greater than their entitlement was in the room. Their confidence faltered for the first time, and the waitress noticed The paused and clung to the puppy tighter, feeling a flicker of hope that perhaps the danger could be contained. The couple's eyes darted around the room, searching for support from the other diners and the staff, but everyone seemed frozen by the unexpected escalation. They muttered to each other frantically, and the man at the corner remained a silent sentinel, watching every detail with calculated precision. He knew that any sudden move from the couple could turn the entire scene violent, and he was ready to act with the skill and speed that only a Navy SEAL could summon. The waitress felt her breath catch as the woman took another step forward, and the man reached out instinctively to intercept the threat. The puppy whimpered louder, and she pressed it even closer to her chest, feeling its tiny body shake with fear. The couple froze again, and the room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move, because everyone sensed that the confrontation had reached a critical point, where one wrong gesture could change everything. Man at the corner shifted his stance slightly, his eyes never leaving the couple, and a subtle tension radiated from him that made it impossible for the aggressors to miscalculate their bravado. Faltered as if they could feel the invisible strength pressing against them, and the waitress felt a rush of relief mixed with lingering fear, because she did not know if this silent protector would act, or if the couple would regain their courage and strike again. The puppy whimpered softly and nuzzled against her shoulder, and she whispered soothing words, trying to calm both herself and the trembling creature. Her eyes flicked to the couple, who were now frozen mid-step, unable to decide whether to advance or retreat, and the man at the corner remained still, yet radiating authority that made it impossible for anyone to ignore. His presence was a quiet storm that could erupt at any moment, and the entire restaurant seemed suspended in anticipation, waiting for the inevitable. Waitress could feel her muscles tighten as the couple hesitated, and the puppy's small heart beat rapidly against her chest. She sensed that the danger had not passed, and that the next few moments would decide everything. The man at the corner remained poised like a predator, coiled in silence, waiting for the perfect instant to intervene, and the room seemed to pulse with suspense, as if everyone could feel the approaching climax of this confrontation. Then the woman took a hesitant step backward, glancing at her companion, and the waitress exhaled, slowly, feeling a flicker of hope, but the tension remained like a live wire running through the air. The puppy nuzzled against her neck, sensing the shift, but still alert, and the man at the corner did not relax his stance, because he knew the danger could return at any moment, and that the smallest miscalculation from the couple could reignite the threat in an instant. The waitress pressed the puppy closer to her chest, feeling its small body quiver as the couple muttered half-hearted apologies and took a step backward. Their faces were pale and their arrogance shattered, but the tension in the room did not ease. The Navy SEAL remained still, his eyes fixed on them, calculating every potential move, as if reading the unspoken thoughts that could turn the situation violent again. The puppy whimpered softly, and the waitress whispered soothing words, trying to calm both herself and the trembling creature. The couple glanced nervously around the restaurant, realizing that all eyes were on them, and that the patrons were no longer just watching, but silently judging. The man at the corner did not move, but the intensity of his presence pressed against them like an invisible wall. Their steps faltered, and for the first time they questioned the sense of entitlement that had driven them into this confrontation. The waitress could feel a cautious relief mingling with lingering fear, because she did not know if the couple would retreat fully or find courage to strike again suddenly. The man reached out a hand, not to touch, but to signal control, and the air seemed to thicken with unspoken authority. The couple froze mid-motion, and the woman swallowed hard, sensing that any further aggression would be met with swift consequences. The puppy nestled closer to the waitress, feeling the tension in the room shift. But still uncertain of safety, the patrons exchanged glances, and whispers ran quietly through the tables, because everyone understood that something extraordinary had just intervened. Man at the corner spoke softly, but with a tone that brooked no argument. "If you move again, it will not end well for you." And the words hung in the air like a silent threat. The couple nodded hastily, murmuring more apologies, and stepped toward the exit, retreating, but the shadow of unease lingered behind them, as if the lesson had been learned, yet the fear remained. The waitress exhaled slowly, holding the puppy tighter, and felt a surge of gratitude, mixed with disbelief, because a quiet stranger had turned the tide without a single reckless act. The couple reached the door, and the man cast one last glance at the seal, realizing they had underestimated both a tiny puppy and the quiet presence that had stopped them in their tracks. The restaurant slowly returned to normal, the clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation rising again, but the air still carried the residue of tension, as if the memory of the confrontation would linger long after the aggressors had fled. The puppy whimpered, softly, sensing relief, but still alert, and the waitress smiled shakily, feeling the bond between herself and the creature deep in. The Navy SEAL crouched, slightly lowering his stance, a silent gesture of reassurance, and whispered, "Are you all right?" And the waitress nodded, gripping the puppy tighter, feeling safe for the first time in minutes. The room seemed calm, yet everyone could feel that the events that had just unfolded would not be forgotten. The couple had left, but the impact of their prof and my only lipstick, they arrogance and the power of a silent protector remained imprinted on the memory of every witness, and the lesson lingered that courage can be quiet and danger can strike unseen. As the waitress walked back toward the counter carrying the puppy, she could not help but glance toward the man who had intervened, and in that glance there was gratitude, respect, and a flicker of awe, because she had learned that sometimes heroes arrive unnoticed, and the smallest creatures can inspire the fiercest protection.